Good evening. My name is Evan Gregory, and this is Bible Answers. We're going to start looking at John chapter 7 tonight, and so you can follow along on the screen. As always, this is brought to you by the North Columbus Church of Christ, located in Columbus, Mississippi. Our website is scrolling below me. It's northcolumbuschristians.com. We also put these videos on YouTube, and our YouTube page is North Columbus Church of Christ. And so if you've been following along for the last several weeks, you know we've been going through the book of John. We finished up chapter 6 last week and making our way into John chapter 7. And so very recently there's Jesus has performed some miracles. He has gotten some I guess you would say there has been some conflict that has started as a result of some of his uh, miracles in the past as well. And so as we continue on, especially here in chapter 7, that there's some tensions that are building, but it's for a lot of people it is becoming more often, or not more often, more obvious to people that Jesus is the Messiah, that he is who he says he is. But again, there are people that reject him and become more focused in their resistance. So we'll start in John chapter 7. And in verse 1, it says, After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brothers therefore said to him, Depart from here and go into Judea, that your disciples also may see the work that you are doing. For no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For even his brothers did not believe in him. So we notice in the first verse here, Jesus walked in Galilee. You will notice, and if you're familiar with the story of Jesus, what his travels look like, where he tended to do a lot of his business, is he tended to stay in the area of Galilee, so around the Sea of Galilee. And notice why he stays in Galilee here. It says that he does not want to go to Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. So again, he's performing miracles. People are questioning him on performing those miracles. For example, of healing on the Sabbath, and there's people just they can't wrap their mind around what he's doing. It seems as though they're getting so caught up in thinking that he violated the law, which he did not. But they think that he violated the law and cannot see past that to witness the bigger picture of who he is. And so his brothers here are saying, go to Judea, be a part of this feast here. And notice what they say. It says, go there so that your disciples also may see the work that you are doing, for no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. So if somebody wants to be known, wants to become a big name, wants to become famous, what do they normally do? That they get out in front of everybody. They get out in front of the cameras, so to speak. And this is what his brothers are telling him, that you're making these claims, and so why don't you go here? Why don't you show yourself to the disciples? They will see the things that you're doing, and they can't wrap their mind around why he's not going out and being in the middle of everything. Why do you linger in Galilee? And so they also say, if you do these things, show yourself to the world. Well, again, why not? Why aren't you going? It says, for even his brothers did not believe in him. So this is a quite remarkable statement. And again, you see over and over what he is performing. He's just fed 5,000, and I believe, if I remember correctly, that's 5,000 men, and there possibly could have been more women and children there. So it could have been more than 5,000 there. But you have thousands of witnesses performing or seeing him perform a miracle. You have others even before this seeing him perform these miracles. And yet there's still many, even those who are closest to him, that simply don't believe him, and they don't understand why he is acting in such a manner. And that takes us to 6 through 13 and Jesus' response to those statements. It says, Then Jesus said to them, My time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. You go up to this feast. I'm not yet going up to this feast, for my time is not yet fully come. When he has said these things to them, he remained in Galilee. But when his brothers had gone up, then he also went up to the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, Where is he? And there was much complaining among the people concerning him. Some said he is good, others said, No, on the contrary, he deceives the people. However, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. Notice his response to his brothers here. He's saying, "My time has not yet come." That there's that he has a plan, and it just hasn't come into full fruition. I can't say that word yet, and there's still some time. It's still just not the right time for him to be more open or do things in the way in which his brothers would like him to do. And so notice also what he says. He says, The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. This is the problem. This is why people are getting so fired up against Jesus, that he's telling people, as he puts it, the world, that its works are evil, that what you're doing is evil, that you are living in sin, that you are not as holy as you might think that you are. And so he makes that claim. Again, he's earlier we see where they're seeking to kill him. This is why they're seeking to kill him. And he tells them to go up to this feast. And he says, I'm not yet going up to this feast, for my time is not yet fully come. And we read that he does go. And so again, he says that he's not yet going up to this feast. It's not quite time for me. I got another plan. And we see where he goes secretly. And we see that he's the talk of the town. The Jews are seeking him. They're trying to figure out where he's at. They would expect him here. And we see this conversation amongst the people, but it's not a public conversation. Some are saying that he's good. Some are saying that he's a deceiver. But notice here, he says, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. There's something that they're just, they don't want to be too vocal about what he's doing. Perhaps they fear the Pharisees and what they might say, or some of these leaders. But the fear of the Jews is causing people, other Jews, to not be open about their beliefs surrounding him. And of course, if you think that you're around a lot of people that think he's good, and you're saying, "Hey, he's a deceiver," you would have a bunch of criticism, and vice versa as well. So that's part of it too. So it takes us to 14 through 19. It says, Now about the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. And Jews marveled, saying, How does this man know letters, having never studied? Jesus answered them and said, My doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone wills to do his will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God or whether I speak on my own authority. He who speaks from himself seeks his own glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Did not Moses give you the law, yet none of you keeps the law? Why do you seek to kill me? So he goes up, and we see that Jesus is teaching here in the temple, and they're amazed. How does this man know letters, having never said? This is not a learned man. This is not a scribe. This is not some leader. How does he know all this stuff? How does he teach in this manner? And we see Jesus saying that his doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me. He knows what the law says. He knows what the prophet said, and he knows the interpretation of all of them as well, because his doctrine is God's doctrine. Again, his doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me. He knows, again, referencing who sent him, that he is from God, that he is God's son, And so he knows what he's talking about. Notice what he also said. It says, if anyone wills to do his will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God or whether I speak on my own authority. So someone who is spiritual, if someone is wanting to do God's will, they're going to be able to look at Jesus and figure out whether he's speaking on his own authority or not. And he says, he who speaks from himself seeks his own glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is true. That Jesus is saying that he's not trying to build up a name for himself. He's pointing people to God. He's pointing people to the truth. It's not about him. It's about the teaching. It's about the doctrine. That is what's going to save these people. Hearing the words and believing on those words is what's going to save him. Now, I think ultimately what Jesus is saying is pay attention to what I'm saying, pay attention to what I'm doing, and if you are really paying attention and get all this other stuff out of your mind, if you're looking at this honestly, you will come to a realization that I am who I say I am. I don't think what he's saying here is, well, as long as if someone is just seeking the glory of God, that's the only criteria of recognizing whether someone is true, or whether they give glory to God is the only criteria to recognizing whether or not they're a true believer. And I don't think this is what he's saying, but you see this total picture of who Jesus is, what he's saying, what he's doing. Also, he says, and no unrighteousness is in him, that all the things that he's doing is righteous. He's not telling people to go commit sins. He's not living a sinful life. And so by looking at all that evidence, they're going to be able to tell who he is. And so notice the next statement that he makes, and it ties in to the next few verses that we're going to look at. It says, did not Moses give you the law, yet none of you keeps the law? Why do you seek to kill me? So why is he bringing up Moses and the law again? And I think what's going on is he's referencing back to healing the man on the Sabbath in John chapter 5. And so the criticism is that he should not have performed that he's working on the Sabbath, and that's against the law. And he says, Moses gives you the law, but you haven't kept the law either. And so they're accusing him of not keeping the law. They've also have broken the law before, obviously. We remember Romans chapter 3, all have sinned, so all have broken that law. And so they're in the same position. If we were going to say that Jesus broke the law they're still in the same position as he is, and they're being hypocritical and holding him up into such high standard. And so he continues on in verses 20 through 24. He says, the people answered and said, you have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you? Jesus answered and said to them, I did one work, and you all marvel. Moses therefore gave you circumcision, not that is from Moses, but from the fathers. And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, so that the law of Moses should not be broken, are you angry with me because I made a man completely well on the Sabbath? Do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. So going back, again in verse 19, he's saying, why do you seek to kill me? And they're responding and say, you have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you? Like, what? You're talking crazy here. I think this is similar, just saying, like if we were to say, you've lost your mind. And but they're saying that you have a demon, and I don't believe. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've talked about, but there is other spots where Jesus, the Jews make the claim that Jesus is able to perform exorcisms on people because he is of Beelzebub, or he is of the devil. That he has this power to cast out demons by the devil, which doesn't even make sense. And so we see another statement here that's of a similar nature, claiming that he has a demon, and they're denying that they're seeking to kill him. But notice what Jesus continues on saying. He says, I did one work and you all marvel. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it's from Moses, but from the fathers. Now, this circumcision, this is part of the law. which Moses. Now we understand that the law came from God, but Moses, in a sense, gave it to them. And this is what he's saying. He's referencing that old law. But he also says not that it's from Moses, but from the fathers. And so this actually is hearkening back to this covenant all the way back to Abraham. Okay. So this was going on with Abraham and his family. This is a part of the law that Moses has given Israel. And notice what he's saying here. So remember that because he healed this man on the Sabbath, they are saying that he broke the Sabbath. Okay. But he is saying that these same people that are accusing him, they circumcise a man on the Sabbath. Okay. He says, if a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath so that the law of Moses should not be broken, are you angry with me because I made a man completely well? So they're performing some work. Okay. But it's understood that this is necessary. If the day for this to happen falls on the Sabbath, it still has to be done. That this is a higher priority than whether or not this is the Sabbath or not. Okay, and people recognize that there are some exceptions to this law. And Jesus is pointing to that they have already broken the Sabbath in a sense because they circumcised on the Sabbath. Again, going back to verse 19 says, "Did not Moses give you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law." I think that ties in with what he is saying. He says, "Y'all ain't following this anyways, because this is what you're doing on the Sabbath as well." Also, it's not here, but Jesus makes another statement that if some animal is in need, if it's fallen into the ditch somewhere, you're going to go pull it out. You're not going to wait till the next day to pull it out. There's just some things are emergencies that happens that everybody recognizes that you have to do that, and they all recognize that it's not technically breaking the Sabbath. And so, again, this is what Jesus is trying to point out here, that you recognize there are exceptions in regards to keeping the law. And then I've healed a man on the Sabbath, a great thing, certainly to the man that has been healed. A great thing has happened. I've helped this individual cure them of this infirmity. And why are you against me? All right, that why can you not see that this is something that is good that has been performed, and by doing so, he's not actually breaking the Sabbath. And he ends this by saying, "Do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment." That you look at all this, you see what's going on, and don't just there there's something going on with these people that they see it, that it's almost like they're just looking for something to point point and say, "Hey, Jesus, there's something wrong with him." That they're just looking and over every nook and cranny to find something that they can accuse him with, rather than looking at this whole picture and what he's actually doing and the good that he's actually doing with this. And many times people will say, "Well, you shouldn't judge. Judge not lest thee be judged." And this is not what Jesus is saying here. He says, "Don't judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment." That there is a time to judge, but judge righteously, judge based on truth, and don't, as he puts it, judge according to appearance. The way things look on the outside, you need to look at these deeper things, these spiritual things, in order to make the proper judgment. And so we're going to end there. As always, if you got a question or comment, feel free to leave it on Facebook. Also, you can leave a comment on YouTube. I try to read those every now and then, see if anybody's made a comment. If you got a question, if I said something that's wrong, you can comment. I don't mind criticism, as long as it's constructive criticism. I'll say that. If there's something we shouldn't strive away from disagreements. We should all be seeking truth. And so that means that there's going to arise something that's sometime in which somebody says something that's not according to truth. And so we all have to seek and strive for that. And so we should never shy away from that. We shouldn't shy away from any type of debates ever. And so, if you got any questions or comments or whatever it may be, feel free to leave that. And we'll keep on making our way through John chapter 7. I don't have on the top of my head how many verses in chapter 7, but I know chapter 6, we have 3 parts to it. So, these chapters are fairly long. And so, we just slowly make our way through these chapters and just really, we're not getting real deep in the weeds, but very fairly quickly, we're making our way through these chapters. But until next time, I hope that you all have a good day and a good rest of the week. And I hope that this study has been useful for all of you. Thanks.